This is our podcast where we belly flop into the bouncy house of mystery, surrounded by conspiracies and unexplained phenomena, with theories so bizarre they may actually make you say,
"Are they thinking with their butt?"
Wow. Welcome back. I was being counted down by Katie, and she was doing an awesome job on that.
It looked like I was having a seizure.
It did a little bit. I was a little concerned. I didn't know what you wanted me to do, but we're recording, so welcome back. I'm Chris.
And I'm Katie.
And this is
Stop Thinking with Your Butt. Good job.
You know, I could do that by myself next time.
You think so?
I think so. I got this.
You don't have to read my lips.
I'm not reading
I could put these note cards down.
Stop it. I got this. I know what our podcast. And you know, when I said it, I didn't have 5 other names going through my head.
You didn't have 5 other
It was just one.
running through your mind?
Yeah, I got it. I got it this
I'm
time.
proud of you.
Next time, solo it.
All right, babe. What are you going to talk to me about today?
Hey, so today we are going to discuss not just discuss, expose.
Ooh, put your clothes back on.
Expose the global climate engineering cover-up. So not everyone may be aware of this. Obviously, there's some who are aware of all these things that we're saying.
Exactly.
But I was
ones.
ignorant of all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Either way, we are going to talk about the global climate engineering. And most of this information is coming from the documentary, The Dimming. And the dimming is basically when the sun is blotted out or reduced.
By what? By Nibiru?
No, not by Nibiru or a bunch of space Ubers.
Or robot birds?
Oh, actually, with 12 billion robot birds, they
carrying
could blot
coconuts?
out. No. The dimming is basically stating that there are people out there trying to create an artificial cloud that comes out of jets and their contrails or their condensation trails, but it's not dispensing normal condensation. It's dispensing metallic oxides to refract or break up the sun's radiation and therefore cooling the planet down more.
So that's a good thing though, right?
But at what price?
Oh, you got intense.
It was good. It may be good, but just like all scientists.
Tell me all about scientists.
No, who knows? You know, they don't think. Once the government gets involved, messes everything up.
Just like scientists.
Fill in the blank with something smart complete. Nice. All right, so let's talk about the man who started this movement, David Wingington. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
He's a solar engineer who grew up in South California, and he remembers that there was a lot of smog.
South California?
South California.
Southern California?
Oh my gosh. Jesus. Jesus. Ayúdame. Southern California. That's what happens when you read notes. It's like, I'm Ron Burgundy. It's just read what I see. No interpretation. Southern California. Next time I won't put SCA. Southern California. And remember that there was a lot of smog and pollution around him when he was growing up, right?
Yes, because that is Southern California.
That encouraged him to actually pursue alternative energy studies, and he wanted to fight global warming. So he's actually a big environmentalist.
Okay, we have to say this from experience because we were both born and raised in Southern California.
Yes.
Now that we've lived out of Southern California for so many years, whenever we drive back into the state, you can see a visible difference in the atmosphere over LA compared to anywhere else. It is thick, it is dark, and it is disgusting.
And dry.
And home. Sorry, California.
But if you're from there, we still love you.
Yeah.
So he's an environmentalist. So he wanted to fight global warming. He took a degree in alternative energy, and he actually specialized in solar panels. And so when he was, I guess, old enough, or when he kind of grew up, I guess mid-40s type of thing, he wanted to escape California, Well, not just Southern
Who
California.
doesn't want to? Okay.
He went to Northern California and got a house in the mountains, was basically doing a homestead almost,
Okay.
living off the grid, using a lot of solar panels. And he realized that his solar panels were not providing enough energy as they should based off his experience, right? And this person is a subject matter expert. So it's not like,
Okay. So
someone else's
what
opinion.
is inhibiting my panels from producing the most?
Yeah, so he
energy?
looked around and he's like, there's nothing that would explain it in nature. And so he was doing tests and studies and he realized that about 60 to 80% of the sun energy was being blocked by something.
Just in Northern California, just in this particular area.
Well, yeah, that's where he was, right?
Okay.
Now he's going to later uncover that it's around most of the world, not just in the California area. So that started causing him to question certain things. And he noticed that there's a lot of these contrails or condensation trails coming from engines. And so the more he was thinking about it, he can see the lines visibly going in his valley, and it was just an extreme amount. Most contrails, based off of science, it should just be really short. They dissipate within typically a matter of minutes. Sometimes you don't even have contrails. It's only for depending on the altitude and so on. And
So contrails are supposed to be the condensation of the
hot engine from the plane hitting
pulling
the
through the cool air.
Yeah, going through the cool air. It's like basically your breath in the winter, you breathing out.
It's an exhale.
Yeah, the exhale, you see the condensation.
So why doesn't that happen the whole length of time that the plane's in the air?
It is, but once it passes, it should dissipate.
Oh, so it's like disappearing as it's releasing. So you will only see it behind the plane itself.
Well, yeah, you're seeing behind because that's where the engine is and it's blowing, right?
Right.
So it's only going to go backwards. But then once it disperses, it should disperse relatively quickly. And if they're at a lower altitude, then typically you don't even get those condensations. It's under certain environmental conditions, right? So, but he noticed that these, not only did they linger, they almost expanded and were forming almost clouds. And how the patterns were, it was so much where he had a couple pictures and even these time lapse videos where it is just the only cloud in the sky is based off of these contrails over like multiple hours. It's just one contrail after the other contrail and they're crossing each other and it's just artificial clouds. But to your point, hey, if it blocks 60, 80% of the sun's energy, isn't that a good thing that we're reducing and cooling the earth?
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's find out why it's not.
Well, then also just a side note or side thought, I guess. If there's contrails in the sky, our atmosphere is so vast that a single contrail, even hundreds of contrails, would only cover a grain of sand in the desert.
Well, we'll talk about that.
Oh,
So,
okay.
what's the data behind that this is artificial, right? The other thing, some people may call this chemtrails, right?
Yeah, I've heard chemtrails.
Yep. So, because what they're doing,
I feel bad. I thought you were saying it wrong and I didn't want to correct you.
so the chemtrail version, right, is again the condensation, but it's not acting like the condensation trails or the contrails. What is happening is that they're apparently putting additives into it. So, aluminum, barium, and some other different chemicals. So let's look before we get to how they're distributing it. David has some data and some patents that actually show that the U.S. government from the 50s were doing patents for weather manipulation, aerial dispersion, and so on. So he has one from 1992, which shows an apparatus method for injecting matter from an aircraft. And it says in the patent, the liquid or gases present at the outlet are discharged in a rearward direction away from the downstream portion of the aircraft by the airstream through the tube. In 2008, one aspect of the aerial delivery system is that the fluid and or material is selected from at least water, gel, with your rain stuff. I think this connects to this
Maybe
actually.
this connects.
Because they would do certain things and it has gelatinous, powder, and decontamination compound or weather modification compound, it states in there, oil spill treatment compound, and firefighting compound. Because the aerial delivery system delivers more than just
Aren't there
weather.
I was gonna say, aren't there helicopters that not necessarily drop water over fire sites, but it's a powder or sand or
Yeah, and there are a bunch of different systems that they can deliver. You also had in the 50s this thing called a powder contrail generation, a microjet atomizer and method of aerial spraying of liquids. In 2010, it's now an enhanced aerial delivery system, which basically there were some issues with the large quantities of fluids, powders, and agent materials to be transported and dispersed by aircraft. So that's some of the patents that anyone can look up. And if you're interested, I'll just give you one and then you can run around and deep dive all you want. One is patent 5104069. That's the apparatus for injecting matter into an aircraft.
interesting.
There's some other individuals that are saying that even though we're seeing this air condensation, it's actually not really a thing, not how we are seeing it nowadays. And it hasn't been a thing for a very long time. So Alan Buckman, he used to be a U.S. Air Force weather observer and the California Department of Fish and Game wildlife biologist. He says,
Sounds hot.
I know, right? He said that condensation trails shouldn't be there because jet engines are designed to burn clean. So anything else you are seeing is an additive.
But could that be because our skies are so polluted? So they're being sucked through and it looks...
Don't think so, but potential.
I don't know. I'm just trying to...
It's additives.
Okay.
And we'll talk about the data. So yeah,
Just trying to explain.
yeah, you also have a former Air Force Brigadier General, Charles Jones.
Ooh, Brigadier.
Back in the Army, that's only a 1-star.
Oh, boo.
Yeah, you can remember that by saying, "Be my little general." B is Brigadier. My is Major. Be my little is Lieutenant General. Oh my God.
Abort! Abort!
And then
Honorably discharge my ass.
it's probably Lieutenant. Yeah.
Be my little general.
Yeah. So either way, there's four-star generals. There you go. Boom. But either way, he was actually the former tactical weather reconnaissance pilot. And what his job was during the Cold War was he was actually trained to know and recognize contrails from different aircraft and be able to track them and
Oh, that's interesting.
coordinate it.
So
Because
every
he's a
every
reconnaissance.
type of plane leaves a different type of trail, like animals and tracks in the wild in the wilderness.
Well, maybe not every type of plane, but I guess the type of plane, right? So a small plane is going to have a different contrail than a 747 and so on, right?
Okay.
And so he recognized all these different contrails.
Did you only know two types of planes just then?
I thought that the audience wouldn't want me to go through my laundry list of well-known planes.
Of
that
small
I've
plane
seen.
and 747?
Yes. Because you have to take all the range, right? Small to large. You're welcome. So he was saying that trails do not linger. They dissipate and turn to cloud coverage. His job was, again, to identify all these things. He was, quote unquote, the expert in contrails and their characteristics. He says what he's seeing right now, how it's lingering and how it's dispersing on the commercial and military jets is not natural. And they are not these white spray trails that he calls them spray trails more than anything, because it doesn't add up to what his experience was in the military.
Okay.
And going back, the standard military and civilian jet engines were designed to have not to have condensation or leftover unless under extreme situations. Going back, the longest it will last is about 20 minutes, and they don't disperse and form a cloud. Most are gone within minutes. Or sometimes you see that condensation from wings as you're lifting off. Depending on clouds, you may just see like a small burst, but that's it. It's not a trail. And he also has pictures and videos of nozzles sticking out of certain engines.
Nozzles. I like that word.
Well, that's good because sometimes we say words and you're like, oh, do not say that word again.
Yeah. But I like nozzle.
Good. Nozzle's a good word. So the nozzles were sticking out of the engine,
I'm sorry
location.
I'm dumbing down your episode.
No, it's hey,
Nozzle.
nice. But again, these nozzles were used to disperse the additives in the engine, is what he's saying is proving it. And he says another way you can prove without a shadow of doubt that these contrails are man-made and not condensation is because he'll record planes flying and you'll actually see the condensation trail. Like when it starts, there will be no contrail. And then all of a sudden it's like it's turned on and then it's like heavy. And then you'll start seeing streaks and then it'll sputter as if you're having gaps. You know how like sometimes you may not have it full in the hose? You just see gaps. What?
I've washed a couple streaks and sputters out of things before.
What? What are you talking about?
Nothing. Let's just keep talking. Food poisoning leads to streaks and sputters.
No, but that was his like big thing, because if it was condensation, it should be consistent. So you having
And you
start
see
and
that
stop.
you see that all the time when you're looking at planes in the sky. You'll see that there's no trail, and then all of a sudden they make a loud noise followed by a trail.
Yeah, but the big thing is not there is no to on, it's sputtering. So it would go on and then off, and then on and then off.
Oh.
So as if there was gaps in the hose or in the nozzle, that were like there was gaps in the material flowing out, and it would sputter. So you'll see it for like 30 feet, and then it'll go
Like Morse
clear
code.
for 30. Kind of like Morse
I'm
code.
not saying that they're using
yeah.
it like Morse code, but the ... dash.
Yeah,
dot,
and
dash.
that's dumb. Is like you can't get any clearer than that. That it's a activation. It is not a contrail. He's like, that's just not how machines act. So the individuals who are aware of it, right, can see these things and help identify a thing. Have you ever felt like you have been attuned to certain secrets that have been hidden in plain sight, like maybe chemical spray on planes?
No.
Or
In tune to it?
Yeah, whether secrets or other things. So here's an example. When you bought when we have a Kia minivan, right?
Yeah.
When you started driving it, did you start recognizing a lot more mini Kia vans?
No.
No.
But when I first heard about Tesla coming out, I can't go 5 feet without seeing one. They're everywhere.
So the thing is, it's like, what's your lens? What are you looking for? Right? When I got my Ford truck, and it's
Then
raised,
everywhere you go,
I'm
see
like,
a truck.
man, I feel like everywhere I go, I'm seeing these raised Ford trucks.
Okay,
right?
so it's like a psychological thing.
Well, it's not.
Now that you know what to look for, you see it everywhere.
Yeah, a little bit, right? So are you attuned to see that? Because sometimes it's just part of the background, right? And that's why a lot of these quote unquote secret programs can be in your everyday life, because you're not really attuned to identify those issues. And I'm going to use an example of when we were at West Point, and you were dropping me off at night so I can go from the parking lot to the campus, and we were sneaking back on base because that's
how we rolled.
That's how we rolled back then. I would not be looking for skunks, but I ran into skunks a lot. And so then once I realized that there were skunks around, I would be on the lookout for them between the parking lot and the barracks. And I would see 2 to 3 every time I walked. Now, prior to that, I may just bump into one once a month, one whichever.
But now you see them
But every
everywhere.
time I left, I saw it, and then I do a bull flanking maneuver around it and so on. But I would see them all the time. So were there
same
not
with,
skunks
like-
prior to? No, of course there were, but I just wasn't attuned to it, and I wasn't just paying attention for
Same when I got into really into true crime, and I realized how big sex trafficking, how big that a problem is.
Mm-hmm.
And so now every time I go outside, everyone's a sex trafficker.
Yeah.
Everyone.
The lady who was trying to potentially steal one of our daughters.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I just ice skate alone. I love looking at little girls. What are you doing?
No. Everybody's a pedophile. Everyone's a sex trafficker.
So
Yeah, I'm going to cut that out.
either way, we're looking at all this stuff. And so with all these chemicals and everything in the air, their goal is to have global dimming. The goal is to decrease the amount of sunlight reaching the earth, and how they do that. And it's been theorized and a lot of documents. So it's not like a unknown theory, but what David is stating, that it's not actually a theory. It's actually happening already. What they do is they need to cause an artificial layer of aluminum nano to reflect the sun's rays on the earth. So when you're talking about, even if you do a little bit, how are you going to get a lot? Well, aluminum is one of those weird properties, and even metallic, where it disperses really well, and you don't need to have really thick pieces of aluminum. It's like nano level. And
so light enough to stay in the air?
It's just the dispersion. Yeah. Now some obviously do come down, but it has that effect that it almost, they're saying something in the documentary where it's almost like it's a solid layer, even though there's
It's
gaps in
blanketing.
space. It's like a full blanket.
Yeah.
Yep.
But it has to come down.
Yeah. Some does. So that's why it has to be reapplied
It has
too.
to be. What does it do to us? Tell me
that's
more. I feel like that's really unhealthy.
So that's where good intentions, but what are the concerns to health of humans or to animals or the environment? Some second and third consequences of manipulating the weather and so on. Right now, what Dave is claiming, is the whole planet is being contaminated and may be permanently destroyed of all life, like doomsday scenario, based off of irreversible effects of geoengineering. So
how long will that take?
Well, we have to first acknowledge it and stop it. Oh, until it gets destroyed? Mm-hmm. It's already happening. So let's talk about real quick. So we talked about a little bit about the hazards or what it is. But looking at the hazards to everything, they actually flew up, did a test, and gathered, I don't go into the details, but there's a hose. They can actually take a sample of the air quality.
Through a contrail.
Not through a contrail. What they'll do is they'll go fly through below atmosphere in the middle of these light clouds that kind of look like contrails.
Okay.
They may have even been a contrail, but they fly through it and above it and everything else to get samples.
Okay.
Well, they tested it and they found aluminum, barium, all well above toxic level. Okay. And the data proves that none of the material in there is natural. So you hear a lot where they're like, oh, of course there's aluminum, right? Aluminum's found naturally.
Found in nature.
Yeah. Well, it's always found in nature bonded. So these particles that were being found and captured and recorded were aluminum nanos. So it's independent. It's only aluminum nano.
So engineered.
So 100% not natural. One of the things too, which is I thought this was just ironic, when you're actually processing aluminum and it's being refined, it actually converts to a powder, and that powder is naturally what color?
Green.
White.
Oh.
Maybe a little bit easier to distribute in the contrails or I should say chemtrails. So we have these airline stewards who are having neurotoxic symptoms such as blurred vision, disorientation, shaking, and respiratory issues. As the pressurized cabins, just so you know how they get air, it actually recirculates it from the outside. And so some of the other health concerns for humans is that because nanos are so small, and when they get in your body, they don't dilute. There's nothing in your body that can fight nanos, right? You don't have white blood cells. You don't have anything like that. And so because they're so small, they actually work themselves in the blood, and they can actually go into your brain, and they cause dementia and Parkinson's and some of those type of things. So he said you should start seeing a spike in that in the world because of all the nanos that are in the world that we're inhaling. Because right now, for when they do air quality tests, they typically test for it's called particle PM10 or particle matters 10 nano, whatever a nano size is. And they look for health things. Well, a lot of these nanos for aluminum and the stuff that they are processing are less than that. Some of them are less than the 2.5 test. So that's why a lot of it is undetectable. It's untraceable. And in fact, the smaller it is, the more impactful and hazardous it is to humans. All those environmental measures that we have on testing air quality do not test for these. So therefore, that's why it's not spiking anywhere as a concern.
It's just not part of the test.
Yeah, it won't register on the test because it's too small to register on the tests that most pollutants and those type of tests look for when they do air quality and something like that, whether it's for a production plant or other things.
Are they implying that the people who are suffering from dementia and Parkinson's now are either highly traveled individuals?
No,
or more susceptible to that type of chemical, or is it also a natural occurrence, a biological occurrence?
Yeah, it's been happening for years. All they're saying is that it can be increased.
That it can increase.
It's an increased percentage, and it doesn't have to be traveling. You could just be walking outside because these particles fall down, and it's not. You don't have to be flying, but a lot of stewards who are in the air and are in a higher, more toxic environment than on the ground, because as it gets to the ground, it's less toxic, but it's still above toxicity or whichever.
Toxicity.
So just things to be in mind of. There was multiple interviews by a individual who was representing the government and talking about geoengineering and some of the positive aspects of it, and just like the concept of it, right? Mm-hmm. Because they talk a lot about the concept, but if you look at the data, it actually looks like it's already been happening. Okay. And so one of the things that they mentioned is that by putting all this aluminum in the air, they were saying that they have to almost dump 100 million tons of aluminum in the Earth's atmosphere annually in order to have enough
Wow.
that it can actually dissipate and, go where it needs
Can
to.
that even physically be engineered in a year?
Oh, yeah, easily.
Really?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. They've been doing it. Apparently that has been the issue.
And they've been doing that since 1992?
They've been for a while. We don't know yet. There was tests up to do earlier. Now, they may not have that much quantity back in the day, but that's what they're proposing. In order to achieve what they're wanting, that is what they're stating they would have to have. Okay. And the other thing about that is they were saying, even though some of these particles do stay in the stratosphere, a lot of them do come down. Even though from a global perspective, you may be killing potentially tens of thousands of people each year based off the nanos. But for the greater good, it would be worth it.
The greater good.
Yeah, so act like some of these programs may be directly killing tens of thousands of individuals, which is what they put in their calculations for poisonous and everything else. But they're like, it's worth it.
How are those deaths explained?
It's all natural occurring, though. Alzheimer's is a natural occurring.
Okay, so that's what they're, okay.
Yeah, all this stuff is it just gets cancer, causes dementia.
I was going to say, I'm like, okay, so it's diseases that are
cancerous
that are
and
common,
neurological,
common enough for no one to bat an eye.
Yeah, you may have a spike in those common ones, so therefore that's the only thing. The only way you could tell is if there was a spike in the normal thing during one of these like back and forths, because they'll have like a public speaking. David actually went to one of these government speaking, and during the debate, he actually asked about what's the impact of the aluminum on individuals. And the government denied that because they're talking about nanoparticles and some other things, but it wasn't actually talking about aluminum. They were talking about something else that was not really unsafe. He's like, well, okay, what about aluminum nanos? Mm-hmm. And they're like, oh, well, we haven't even done a study on that yet, is what they stated. And he said it could be not harmless at all, or it could be extremely dangerous. We don't know.
Oh,
and
interesting.
To him, he's like, it's a lot of BS because I know that we've already tested it. It's in the air. You're already doing it. And the big concern is we're doing it without getting the scientists, without getting the government to know that it's doing this. Because again, it's one of those other government programs that's so compartmentalized and so top secret that no one gets read on to it.
Well, then there's also the theory that the global warming, the condition of the Earth's atmosphere right now is beyond repair in our lifetimes. So no matter what they do now.
Well, that's why they can cool it down.
So that's why.
So how do they even get this idea of cooling down? They're trying to mimic what a volcano eruption does.
Oh, how it dims the air.
It dims the air and actually cools the temperatures down. Yeah. And so because of that, that's how they're thinking about the whole global and the dimming piece. Oh. So that's the main piece of the engineering thing. But let's talk about what else has the government been doing in regards to weather modification. Mm-hmm. Because it's beyond just the chemtrails that they're putting the aluminum in the air and doing all that, right? So there was actually patents, again, going back to the 20s, to create artificial clouds, fog, and mist through hot air balloons.
Back to the 20s?
To the 20s. And in 1927, D.B. Brader patented a machine that can produce smoke clouds from a moving aircraft. And it was demonstrated, and one small engine plane was able to distribute a cloud about 8 blimps long with thick smoke.
I like that they were counting it by blimp lengths.
That was actually me based off the picture. Because I'm like, I have no idea how long that is, but they had a blimp in the picture. So I'm like, oh, so eight blimps long.
A scientific measurement given to you by Christopher Lee.
You're welcome, sir. What size blimp was that? Average.
It's like how our daughter measures everything by whales.
Yeah, whales. Oh, that's about
that's about 5 whales. Yeah, I walked like 10 whales today.
Yeah, it was like 2 buses equals 1 whale.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. So there you go. You're welcome. So if
funny.
One small engine plane can do 8 blimps, think about.
You couldn't even just give a rough estimate on how long a blimp's 100 feet.
There you go.
800 feet.
There you go, 800. I don't want to like restrict people. I want their mind to, visualize it.
Because blimps vary in size, so
800 feet. There you go. Happy?
No, because I want you to use
Dana, scientist.
My imagination is very.
But here's the thing:
strong. I would
whatever you imagine, whatever you imagine, act like current aircraft can carry a capacity. Stop it. They can carry a capacity to do 500 more times. What
40,000 blimps.
You're good on math. Look at you. Just spit it out there. Yeah, 40 times. So again, what that is stating though is that you can actually get large dispersals and then the clouds hang up in the stratosphere. It isn't like it just goes away. There's that piece. And then climate changes initiatives were actually deployed immediately after World War II from the government. So there's some independent stuff prior to, and then right after World War II, this is actually where the condensation theory is actually people relate to, like, oh, well, don't you see the World War II bombers when they have condensation trails? Well, apparently there's also a video about these being turned on and off as well. And there's suspicion that these bombers were the beta test of the new patents.
Beta test? Who are the alpha testers?
Beta test. That's how certain things just go straight to beta, babe. You never got those invites for playing game? We're doing the beta test.
Oh, no.
Beta test, just a pre-test, pre-release. It's act like it's pretty much there. We just need to trial it.
Refine it.
Yeah.
Okay.
In 1958, there was also a lot of articles about using weather as a weapon. Weapons-based experiments such as electronic bombardment of the ionosphere, to alter its electrical charge. You also had Air Force scientists experimenting with sodium vapors ejected from jet planes to intercept solar radiation. And they would try to regulate the distribution of heat in different ways to part of the Earth's atmosphere. So it's basically trying to distribute the heat waves in the Earth's atmosphere.
That's interesting.
Yeah, different things in the 50s. When we talk about weather and like, do they have the technology? 100% from everything, we have the technology to act on all these scientists about geoengineering. It's
just
whether or not
we're doing it or not.
Can, or what's the second and third impact of doing that we may not know of.
And would it be for the greater good?
Well, I think it is, but there's a lot of old 1950, like you have the presidents back then saying, he who controls the weather can control the world.
That's not what the saying is.
There is a quote.
Isn't it he who controls
I'm sure there's other
trade
ones.
routes or something?
This is a quote.
Okay.
And there's other quotes, I'm sure, about whatever you were just talking about. One of the presidents. Man.
Make one up.
No. But also, there's also for a short period of time, a thing called Project Cyrus, which was looking at how to create and manipulate hurricanes and tornadoes.
Like redirect them or just to create them?
Well, both.
Oh.
Create and manipulate hurricanes and tornadoes.
That would be interesting. That would save a lot of lives.
Yeah, or you can inflict a lot of death.
You went dark.
That's what we're creating this for. Save ours, people. Destroy theirs. That's how it is. So, let's talk about more, babe. Even in Vietnam, between 1967 and 1972, they had a classified rain-making program that was conducted in Southeast Asia, which employed air-dropped silver and lead iodine seeding units to increase the monsoon rainfall. You can use weather for cover. Think of back in the day, like World War II, right? Where even the movie I like, Patton, right?
Yeah.
Where, they're praying for clear air. Or you would want there to be clouds or rain for the enemy so that they can't use
obstruct their vision.
Obstruct their vision, silence your movement, limit their air power, things like that. So that's why there's a lot of military applications to weather manipulation. They actually had the National Weather Modification Policy Act of 1976.
Okay.
I don't know if you're aware of that.
No, I was not.
It stated its purpose is to develop a comprehensive and coordinated national weather medication policy and national program of weather to modify research and development. And basically, it's using the national and international mechanisms so that basically multiple parties working together on weather manipulation.
Like a UN of weather?
If you manipulate weather, it doesn't just impact your country, it impacts the world. There's been people talking about this behind closed doors, basically throughout the 20th century. Document weather as a force multiplier is what the military says. There's a document that says they want to own the weather in 2025. Space Force, which was created under the last administration, basically is their goal is to own the weather. And they're trying to enhance friendly operations to disrupt those of the enemy, small scale tailor of natural weather patterns. That's in their script or in
This
their
is
in their
all under
pamphlet.
Space Force umbrella.
Yep. When we're looking at, well, what are some of the things that are going on? What do some of these things look like? Well, you got the Iran's president, Mohammed Ahmadinejad. Sure I messed that up. Basically said that Europe is trying to steal Iran's rain because it's using high-tech equipment to drain the clouds of raindrops.
I thought Europe's always complaining that they have too much rain.
Europe, being the Western powers, is stealing the rain of Iran, causing Iran to be in a drought. For punishment, right? There you go. And because these nanos, as discussed later on, is that they can actually be manipulated. You have some that can do certain properties and do different things. One is they can actually absorb moisture from the air.
Oh, that's messed up.
And so that's why Iran is saying we are being manipulated, because he's like, this drought is not natural.
Iran is saying that.
Yes. Where have you been?
I'm just saying they are okay. When I think of Iran, I think of a very dry area.
It is.
So for
kind of like
them
Iraq.
to be saying this is too dry.
Yeah. And from there, going back, the U.S. media is not covering the dry spout in Iran.
Well, why would we? It doesn't affect us.
Well, of course we want it, because the CIA and the government have embedded media people, so they can help control what comes out or not. And that's actually that non-conspiracy wise. There's a lot of classified things that come out, and so they partnered with a lot of the mainstream medias to don't release things and get people killed, type of thing. Oh. So that's a real thing. There's no conspiracy on that one.
Oh wow. Crap.
Yeah, it's called a desiccant. Absorbs material.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's a desiccant, like desecrate.
Yeah, a desiccant is what the nanos can be manipulated into.
Dark.
Yeah. So you even had people like in Canada. So you had a lot of these former prime ministers of Canada, prime ministers of British Columbia, who would come out and demand to hear more about phenomenon that was going on and potential geoengineering. Because it's still classified, they were able to get documents, but they're all blacked out pretty much.
It's just like one solid black line throughout the whole thing.
But there was enough in there to state that the government knew and was actively involved in geoengineering.
Okay, let's pretend like we know what the documents say. So you're looking at a paper with a document that's all been blacked out. Mm-hmm. What words do you see?
Environment, danger, aluminum. Just enough.
Just enough to know what's going on.
Yeah. And so you have other actors that are trying to get involved too.
Steve.
No, they wouldn't have a name there. They would say agent. Spelled out, strangely enough, if you blacked it, dumb ass, but blacked out. That's a space, right amount of letters.
Yeah.
So there's other actors though, like Bill Gates. If you don't know, he was made the headlines recently.
He's making snow right now, isn't he?
Well, you heard that he's also buying a lot of land.
Actually, I didn't know that.
A lot of land in farmland. There's titles that are saying Bill Gates, his savior complex, it's spiraling out of control because he funds a sun-dimming plan to save the human race. Mm. And there's another article that says Bill Gates wants to spray millions of tons of dust into the stratosphere to stop global warming. Well, guess what? It's already happened. That's what David is already trying to say, is like the theory and the concept and the technology is all there. They have the plans, they have the technology, but the only thing that he's stating is that it's already happening. It's not a post decision making. It's already going.
What do you think? Are you going to tell me what you think?
Oh, I totally think it's happening.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Probably.
They're proposing, actually, sorry, it's not 100 million tons. It's 10 to 20 tons of nanomaterial each year is what would be needed.
That's different than 100 million ton.
No, I said 100 million. It's, that's a way better. 10 tons.
10 tons.
100 million.
100 million tons. I'm like,
yes, that's a lot. Yes. Thank you for calling me out on that.
See how I'm like 100 million tons? Man, they can do that. Oh, yeah, easily.
Hey, that's why I'm an honest person. I'll tell you exactly.
You're an honest person.
I corrected myself. There you go.
Oh, gosh.
So you even have, to say whether or not is this still ongoing, is it happening? You have even the former CI director, John Brennan. I think this was maybe 5-6 years ago. He actually praised, one of the things he praised is the new stratospheric aerial injection program. He said he was really had his eye on that program and it was enjoying how they're progressing on that. So David, not only did they test the air, they also tested the water. of all the stuff, right? Because the stuff comes down.
Right.
So when he tested the water, all three of the main particles in the patents, because the patents will actually show, hey, I need certain things.
Right.
Were all found traces in it. That includes aluminum, and it was found at 3,400 parts per billion,
Wow.
which apparently is highly toxic rain.
Wow. That
So
is
one
a
of
lot.
these other, it's because rain should have 0 aluminum particles.
Wow.
Because again, the natural aluminum is always found bonded. In rain, it's being found in free form, which is that nano piece again. You get a lot of acid rains and so on. And some of these park rangers were saying that even though it,
So are they saying that the acid rain is over condensed nanoparticles?
yes, and some of the wildlife people that they were interviewing was saying that even though some of this acid rain is not necessarily, it's not like if you stand in it, you're not going to be like, my
You're not going to
eyes.
get burned, but it might kill vegetation?
It could. It may have other effects. But he did say it was about 3 times natural. What is like the highest that you'll find it naturally? This is 3 times as high based off some of these samples recently.
Okay. I don't feel like 3 times is that bad, but I guess over an extended period of time, it could become.
Well, act like if you had 3 times the amount of Parkinson disease patients. What if you had 3 times autism?
Yeah.
What about 3 times?
Alzheimer's.
Yeah.
Dementia.
Autism too.
Autism too.
So now you have all this stuff in the air, right? So that's one bad thing, just the health particles of having it all. But then it goes to like, what else can you do with that stuff?
Mm-hmm.
There's more manipulations that you can do, not just having it. Strontium, manganese, and aluminum, barium. These are all polymers.
Say those again.
No. Nailed it the first time. I'm not going to say I'm any better the second time. So
I really just didn't want you to say aluminum.
aluminium.
No. Okay.
What did I say?
Aluminum.
Did I say aluminum?
It sounded like aluminum.
Oh my gosh. You guys get me. Aluminum. But all these polymers, they are particles that can be manipulated by also extremely powerful radio microwave frequencies.
Okay.
So there's these transmissions or transmitters, right, that can actually heat up the atmosphere by targeting the aluminum particles in the air.
But we don't want to heat up the atmosphere.
What happens when you heat it up?
Everything dies.
What's a high pressure? When you heat up the aluminum, it actually creates a pressure zone and it steers the air currents up. That's where the mind just got blown a little bit. So only
it's creating an updraft?
Yeah. And so therefore you can actually
Tornadoes?
you can pull things in certain directions and you can spin things in certain directions.
Oh, that's interesting.
Does that make sense? Because now there's all this metal and
But again,
polymers.
you'd have to do that in like a huge.
No, you would need 10 to 20 and they've already done it. But listen, it's feasible. Don't think that, you need a lot. You have enough to get around the world. No issues. Okay.
But I'm saying like to direct.
Yeah. So you would have, no. So those, yeah.
You'd have to have like 5,000 blimps worth of.
Nope.
Directed.
Nope.
Okay.
Act like not every single thing. All you need is a large wave transmitter. So if you look, there's some things.
Yeah, but how large?
Football fields, multiple emitters based off the pictures that they were shown. One of them is called the HARP program. It's emitting those frequencies and it's in Alaska, but they're also spread across all the world. There's some in Peru. There's some in South America. There's some in, Peru, South America. Yeah. There's some throughout the world. But the whole intent though is that you can get these emitters and they can influence hurricanes, tornadoes. You can pull warm air into areas that they haven't had warm air in the past, but cool air. And so some of these factors are, while they're manipulating or testing it or whichever, you may see strange weather phenomena across the world, such as it can also create snowfall or rainfall
in areas where it's not.
So
common.
they had 100,000 cattle were dead in South Dakota because the snowstorm showed up earlier than ever had in history. What happened in Portland last year? Highest temperature in the recorded history in Portland, 116 degrees. California being the drought. If you look at where this Alaska HARP program is, that city, if you look at the, from a global, how they have the winds blowing and so on, it's actually like a dome because they'll say that there's a high pressure dome, pushes everything out and then it manipulates it around the edges. That dome covers southern Alaska and pretty much California and a lot of the West Coast. which is why they're saying that because you're in the middle of the dome, you're not going to get any rain from the California area. Now that you have all this, we get also hit with frigid cold snaps, and we're breaking temperature records. And in Texas, 2 years ago, the entire year's worth of snow hit Palms, Texas. You had some things on Lake Michigan where they had 75-pound ice balls that were washing up the shores.
What?
And you may be like, well, that's weird, considering the Lake Michigan waters is 40 degrees. But yet you're having ice balls that are weighing 75 pounds.
Where are they coming from?
This may go back to your gelatinous piece, because what it is theorized is that it coagulated with some of these chemical and because they're doing ice manipulation, and it just created these balls. Act like it's just chemical spray, just adhesive, and it's stuck together. And now you have 75-pound ice balls in 4-degree water. Everyone's like, no, that's not natural. And then they moved on, and they stopped talking about that story. And they had video of the shoreline. So it's pretty interesting. So you have just things that are not natural. Okay. And so the other piece too is some of the ice engineers, because you have all these different type of engineers. You have engineers who are trying to refreeze the Arctic Ocean.
Yeah.
Right?
That
to
would
help
be
with the iceberg. But what happens is they do it, and what they ended up thinking that they did, they only were able to freeze it enough to put a top layer on. And then what that actually did is almost like insulation. And it actually caused the water underneath to get warmer.
Oh, so they done messed up, son.
It actually expedited the warming of the Arctic.
No, way to ruin the world, science.
Yep. So all these good intentions suck if you don't know what you're doing.
The problem is they all know what they're doing, but they won't necessarily know negative side effects until it's been executed.
So therefore, they don't know what they're doing. They're acting on it. Does that make sense?
They haven't thought through all the scenarios.
So the other thing too is,
Did you notice that I said scenarios and not scenarios?
Like
okay.
And just like how I say conspirator.
Yeah, I like it. I'm trying to be fancy.
Not only do you have the wind and blowing in different areas, some of the sea current is also changing because of the weather patterns.
Are they really?
Yeah, the temperature is blowing warm water into the Arctic area. So how it's theorized being manipulated, it's actually pushing warmer water in the Arctic area in addition. So
I wonder
it's having the reverse effect of what they were trying to do.
I wonder how that's affecting like migration.
So even though it's cooling down, it's doing nothing to protect against the UV light from the ozone layer. Like it's not repopulating the ozone layer. In fact, not only is it not repopulating the ozone layer, because of the warmer waters, it's actually warming up old ice that used to contain methane. And so a lot of the methane is being released into the ocean, and it's being released at a massive scale where, like, if you look at Russia, they have some of these mysterious sinkholes that just popped up that are like 8 feet wide, or not 8 feet wide. I'm sorry. About 40 feet wide. Right. It was 8 bodies. I had to take the guy. I'm like, okay, he's about 5 feet. And then I like, in my head, flipped him head over head. And I'm like, okay, that's about 80.
You're the smartest person I know. Why are you measuring like that?
Hey, just quick. But either way, about 40 feet wide. And
8 bodies.
Yeah. Okay. But it's a straight hole. It looks like almost like a bubble that was in the earth, and it just worked its way up and popped through.
Oh, that's interesting.
Thing, right? And so again, they're thinking a lot of these are natural methane, and based off what David was stating is that there's enough natural methane in the world to kill it and make it look like the surface of Venus because of how much it could be.
Wow.
Because of how much it could easily destroy the ozone layer and then kill everything else. And so that's another thing that is happening from all the geoengineering. So positive, right? Good times. So the methane is 120 times more potent than CO2 emissions.
Yeah. Because cows are the number one pollutant.
Yep.
And because of all their methane that they release.
Yeah. So what they're also saying is because of some of the weather that's going on, you actually see trees blooming earlier and staying alive longer. But in addition to that, you have some trees that are starting to see deforestation's type of impact. So the trees are almost shutting down in a hybrid state like they do in winter, but they're doing it a lot earlier. And because they're doing it a lot earlier, there's not enough of the natural leaves that just kind of over time.
They can't pollinate.
Well, not only pollinate, but like the soil underneath isn't getting the nutrients as much as it needs to.
Oh.
And so if you look at Yellowstone, or that's where they were in the documentary, you'll see these sporadic dead trees. And they're like, all these trees should be green right now. And you see some that are just dying. And because of that, the whole soil erosion is just going away. And so what it's making.
And the trees of Yellowstone are millions of years old, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm assuming. Mm. Yeah. Why not?
Like the redwoods.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's not man-made or anything.
No. I'm just saying that it's like beautiful, natural, just like glory.
Yes. Very natural and gloriful. Gloriful. You're welcome. Tune in for more awesome descriptive words. No, so either way, so what's happening is, so now you're having a bunch of trees that are going to a hibernation state earlier, and it's causing more of these forests to actually become more dry and brittle, and it actually is increasing fires. And so you have some firefighters during some press conferences that they're like, the fire is more aggressive than in years past. This is unprecedented how the fires are reacting and how it's burning, because it's basically more tender in the woods. There's just more things for the fire to burn and it dry and everything, right? That's another impact that's happening with all the weather. So you may be asking yourself, why are there no whistleblowers?
Yeah, why aren't there any whistleblowers?
Well, you do have a couple people coming through.
Well, I feel like there's a lot of whistleblowers.
Well, there's a lot of
scientists. But they're not being taken seriously.
Especially
where
now,
are the legitimate?
There is the compartmentalization, right? If it was happening, and let's say it was a global conspiracy or a global classified operation,
right?
They want to have whistleblowers to an extent. And if you look at whistleblowers that do happen, whatever happens to them, nothing good. Right? Especially with government. At best, your whole life's ruined. Mm-hmm. At worst, you may end up dead.
Yeah.
So there's not really incentive to be like, I think I'm going to explain about X, Y, and Z. When you have all these third parties and other associates or people who are in these things, they're all compartmentalized, right? So they only get their small piece of the pie, and they may not know how. So
there might not be others. Anyone with enough information to clearly validate any of this stuff.
But strangely enough, recently there was a weather service gag order for them not to talk about any phenomenon that they see.
Just weather-related phenomena.
Yep, all weather service employees were put on a federal gag order to not talk. They didn't state the year. I think it was in the teens.
So they can report the weather in terms of the forecast, but they can't discuss.
Like, they can't discuss any phenomena that they see with any other parties. They can't go to the newspaper. They can't tell their families or whichever.
What are the repercussions for doing that?
You'll lose your classification. You'll be fired and potentially in prison.
That's true.
For leaking. So these are all the things that are kind of going on. And it's funny if you look at like some of these.
Yeah, it's hilarious. It's hilarious.
Weathermen talk about it and they laugh. Because while they're talking about it, you actually see certain video of these like stretch lines of clouds. I don't know if that's the right term. Put clouds, really narrow clouds, right?
Okay.
And they would actually say that these are actually military doing. Mm-hmm. But all of them are quote unquote trained to say that they're just dropping shaft. It's just anti-radar.
Okay.
Right. But so what shaft is.
Just talk about shaft.
Yeah. So shaft is, you could do a couple things, right? It's anti-radar, or so if they're trying to missile lock on you, you can
drop shaft.
It out. Yep, drop shaft and try to get that missile off of you, right? However, they were mentioning that there is tiny aluminum particles that are going to be sprayed in the air. And so that's how they also say that why there may be some nanos in the air is from radar manipulation or these shafts.
That makes sense. So it's like trying to protect yourself from impending doom. You drop a divergent.
But a lot of these shaft things that are used aren't nano sized. But one of the things they actually said was pretty interesting when they were talking about the weather manipulation and the heating and so on, where they're talking about radar. So think of the stealth bomber.
Yeah.
If it gets pinged with the radar, it has like a super, super small signal. But you can manipulate, if you have all that stuff in the air, those ions and those aluminum nanos and so on, they're saying that you can actually manipulate that, whether with temperature or whichever. So it makes everything that color. Does that make sense? So you can actually cover everything within that whole area. So you may have a whole fleet of aircraft that are undetectable because it's just a big blob, right, of radar instead of a ping. So I thought that was pretty interesting. So the military, I only mention all these military things because some of the technologies that may be used for geoengineering started from, again, tactical advantage.
Everything starts from warfare.
Yeah. The interesting piece is going back to David Icke and the lizard people. And we kind of ended it with like, he thought the cell phone towers were emitting so on. Now I know a little bit more about why he's talking about that. So what he's talking about is the cell phone towers, because people are naturally ingesting all these nanos, polymers that aren't going away by it being activated or being close. A lot of these 5G systems, they're saying that they actually have power to do 10 times what they're designed to do. So if they need just power cell phone transmissions and so on, they're actually more powerful. And so there's thought on what's the impact on human and society if we have all the stuff in ourselves and then it gets activated, right? Oh. And then we may have some type of adverse effect, or
like a potato in the microwave.
Something like that. Don't know, but some type of negative piece. Or in his head, that's how they got COVID, right? So that's one of the things that he was talking about, is because we already have these nanopolymers. So instead of it being transmitted to the air and it's causing all those heat pressures and so on, it's transmitting to us.
This reminds me of one of the Naked Gun movies.
When the global,
when they get activated.
Yeah.
I will kill.
But when we get activated, all we do is die of dementia.
Yeah, that's not good.
Yeah. So I just thought that was interesting, the fact that he was talking about the 5Gs, but I think he was mentioning that. And so now if you look back on it, he also mentioned that he was denying that climate change was, he denied climate change. This is one of the reasons why he did deny it. And why some of these other environmentalists are denying climate change is because they're saying, no, it's not climate change. Climate change, the natural process, is not changing all this stuff. What's actually causing all this crap to happen is geoengineering. The geoengineering is having the impact of the nanos in the air. It's having the impact of...
But why geoengineering?
Because
the environment is suffering, is it not? Or...
Well, yes, but...
So then climate change would be real.
Well, yes, I guess it would be. But what they're saying is the effects that we're seeing now are not climate. They're not natural. Climate change means, hey, things are happening naturally in the environment. They're like, no, this has nothing to do with climate change and natural processes. This is us manipulating the environment, realizing that they're screwing with everything, because not only does it dry the wood, it puts warm water in. Now we're doing the stuff in the Arctic, but it also, the UV rays is still killing the bacteria and the plankton and so on, which may have other impacts and
on
so
the sea life. Yeah.
So everything that's kind of going on, and the health piece in terms of human, is all coming due to geoengineering. And so in order to stop it, we have to stop. If we really want to help the planet, we need to stop. Be aware that there's geoengineering going on. Mm-hmm. We need to stop it. Or they need to be involved with other scientists, other health officials, and so on, so they can do it in a smart way. Right. Because the intent's good, but the execution and the impacts is catastrophic.
Well, I wonder what would be happening, though, if we did nothing. If there was no geoengineering.
Oh,
because going back to what I said earlier, that it's been said that the effects of the environment right now or the condition of the environment right now is so bad that there's no reversing its condition right now.
Which is probably why they're saying, well, we got to do something. So I don't
That's
know.
Right. Yeah.
Right?
So it's
I'm
like,
not saying
do we do something and cause harm, which may end up leading to positive results?
What I would say is, I think they need to have transparency. Just
do you think they do?
No, because they're
No, do you think they need to?
Yes, I just said. Because I think they could be more efficient in achieving their goals. I think by doing it how they're doing, you may piss off some people, because again, no one wants to be manipulated and or test subjects without some of these experimental.
Would it lead to rioting? And
I don't think it will lead to rioting. I don't think so. But what I would say is that having the transparency and then working with actual, not just your scientists, because there's plenty of people like when they had all the data that said, hey, look at these nanos, look at whichever. And then their scientists was like, this is nothing. Well, just think about back in the day when you had tobacco smoke. Right?
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, well, it's healthy for you. It's actually
it's good for the baby.
It's good for the baby. Well, no, I look at, here's the data I have that this is horribly wrong. And they can turn data to speak whatever they want for them. That's what I think needs to happen is, okay, if it's happening, got it. Well, why don't we stop until we figure out and be transparent on it, stop compartmentalizing it so that we can share information, digest it, and all this other fun stuff. So that's what I think. What about you?
That's interesting.
Do you think it's happening?
I don't know.
So anyone listening should just go on the video, look at the dimming. It's pretty telling.
I'll probably put a link. I'll put a link to it in the show notes.
Yeah, because when you see the different contrails or the sprays and so on, and how it manipulates, and you can even see that it looks like one like where the nozzle's kind of like off a little bit, so it's like doing circles. It's just there's some weird things when you look at it and you're like, that's not natural based off hearing all these.
I'm curious
generals.
to see. I'm curious to see what people have to say. I want people to write in and tell us what they think about it, or if they have more information on it.
Yeah, they also think that's one of the reasons why the bees went away. Because the impact, another second and third impact of all the weather stuff changes.
I'm a fan of the bees.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
don't like bugs, but I am a fan of the bees.
That's what I got on chemtrails and just basically geoengineering as a whole. Fascinating to no idea about any of that stuff.
I don't doubt that there's things like that happening. I'm just wondering to what extent and
what the harmful effects
what the harmful effects are. To your point with the transparency, I guess if I knew what the end results would be, or at least what the goal or purpose would be.
Yeah.
If I knew that I had a 60 or 30% chance of getting Alzheimer's.
Yeah.
But my grandchildren would live a long, healthy life.
No, so I think
So that's just interesting. I got to think about that.
I think I would be for it to help and correct and everything, right? But it's just like one of the people are saying is it's not that it can't be done due to a lack of resources, because the world has the ability. There's plenty of resources to solve any of these sub problems. It's really a lack of politics.
Yeah.
Right? Either
politics,
international
man.
or national politics. Yeah. So, and it's funny because I was watching the thing, and within the first 6 minutes, because I'm like, what is this? Even before I was like, it just sounded funny.
What is this crap?
And then I watched the video and I was seeing the things.
Funny, you said.
It was. I'm like, it seems like a common.
And
within the first 6 minutes, I'm like, this damn government. like, God, it's like black and white. It's
I
easy.
can't even walk outside without the government being all over this place.
No, but like just between the on and off and knowing how some of those things work, I'm like, yeah, that is 100% being manipulated. 100%.
Instant believer.
Like,
just add beer.
Just add beer. That thing was like a 2-hour-long documentary, and like 6 minutes in, I'm like, I'm sold. I don't know what the next 2 hours are going to be about, but I feel like I already got
Would
enough
you also
knowledge.
like to buy real estate in the swamp?
No,
yes,
so
please.
no, so I thought it was very interesting and did not know all the different impacts, and I thought it was just very interesting. I know I say interesting a lot.
Yeah, no, it is though.
Yeah.
I'll ride this train with you.
Okay. Well,
Maybe in like the passenger car while you're at the helm or in the engine room.
Hey, as long as you're with me, that's all good.
I got you.
Hey, so where can we be found again? Did you already?
Yeah, well, so first of all, thank you guys for listening. We hope you really liked it. This was fascinating. Save the bees.
Save the bees.
If you want to write in, give us some suggestions, some topics, let us know what you think about this episode. You can write to us at stopthinkingwithyourbutt@gmail.com. All one word.
She's amazing.
Yeah. And if you want, you can also follow us on Instagram at stopthinkingwithyourbutt. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for joining us.
So today's takeaway.
Government will use you as rats. That's the takeaway. Like the greater good.
The greater good.
The greater
The
good.
greater good. Out.
Strontium, manganese, and aluminum, barium. These are all polymers.
Say those again.
No. Nailed it the first time.